I thought walking away from him would be the end. Instead, it started a chain of events I still can't believe happened. Everyone thinks I won. But some nights, I'm not sure I survived. Friday morning, I walked back into my office for the first time in weeks. No one bombarded me with questions. No awkward stares. Just warm smiles, fresh coffee, and a box of donuts waiting on my desk. My boss handed me my new assignment, a project developing a wellness app. Honestly, it couldn't have been more perfect. Monday morning at Pilates, before class even started, Sophia gathered everyone. She announced the studio was launching a support group for women dealing with harassment and abuse. 12 women signed up on the spot, including 2 I never would have guessed had gone through something like that. By Saturday afternoon, I was unpacking the last box in my new apartment when I found it. My old journal from when Preston and I first started dating. The early pages were full of him. Perfect, romantic, the one. But reading it now, I could see it so clearly. How the control started in tiny ways. Little comments about my clothes, my friends, my body, slowly turning up the heat until I didn't recognize myself. I closed the journal and tucked it into a drawer. Not as something to dwell on, but as proof of how far I've come, and how much I've learned about what real love is supposed to look like. Thursday evening, the studio threw a party they called Strength in Numbers. Woman after woman stood up and shared her story. Controlling partners, workplace harassment, families who tried to make them smaller. And I realized I wasn't special in what I went through. I wasn't broken. I was part of something bigger, a community of survivors. Tuesday morning, I woke up in my new place without checking the locks, without peeking through the blinds for suspicious cars. I made coffee and actually enjoyed the quiet instead of fearing it. I stretched, feeling the broad, strong shoulders I'd built. The muscle in my body and in my spirit. Preston's voice calling me too bulky felt like it belonged to another lifetime. That night in class, Sophia announced endurance training and challenged me to hold a 5-minute plank. My first thought? Absolutely not. But then the class started cheering. 2 minutes, my arms shook. 3, they burned. At 4, I was ready to quit. Until Miranda yelled, "Preston's in prison where he belongs, and you're here getting stronger." That was it. I dug in. The last 30 seconds felt like 30 hours, but every single woman counted with me. And when I collapsed at exactly 5 minutes, the room erupted cheers, applause, a full-on group hug right there on the floor. Sophia helped me up and looked me right in the eyes. "You're not the same woman who played that voice message months ago," she said. "That woman was scared and small. This woman is unbreakable." And she was right, because Preston tried to make me weaker. Instead, I became exactly what he feared most. Strong enough to leave him, brave enough to fight back, and powerful enough to win. All right, that's a wrap on my end. Rolling up the old commentary, Matt. Thanks for letting me be the snarky voice in the back of your head through this whole ride. If you made it this far, drop a comment. You know I love reading them. So, picture this. 3 months ago, I'm in my Saturday Pilates class in Manhattan. You know the kind, where everyone shows up in matching sets, pretending we're not about to pass out, when my phone buzzes next to my Stanley Cup. It's a voicemail from my boyfriend. And me? I'm a sucker for his voice. Plus, this class is usually chill, so I just hit play. On full volume. Biggest mistake of my life. The first thing I hear is, "I don't like how much you've been working out lately. It's getting obsessive." My stomach instantly drops. But he's not done. "You're getting too bulky. Your shoulders are literally wider than mine. It makes me feel emasculated when we go out." And then, the one that burned itself into my brain. I didn't sign up to date a man. In a room full of hourglass baddies. Yeah. That was my public humiliation, blasting across the room mid-plank. I glance up and the whole class is frozen. 20 women, just staring at me. You could have heard a pin drop. I wanted to sink through the reformer and never come back. Then my instructor, Sophia, kills the music. "Ladies, did we all just hear what I think we heard?" I can't even look up. My hands are shaking so bad they're slipping on the handles. That's when Miranda, perfect hair, Perfect skin. Perfect everything. Leans over and says, "Honey, look at me." She's not judging. She's furious. Sophia's like, "Play it again." "What?" "No, It's fine. Play. Again." So I do. Immediate chaos. One woman's like, "Oh, hell no." Another lets out this angry, disbelieving laugh. Sophia walks right up to me. "How long have you been coming here?" "6 months." I mumble. "In those 6 months, you've gotten stronger, more confident, and stunning. You are not bulky. You are snatched." Miranda's already pulling out her phone. "What's his Instagram?" "Why?" "Just trust me." Within seconds, she's scrolling. "Oh my God. This guy follows nothing but fitness models. Literal muscle goddesses. So he likes strong women. Just not when it's his girlfriend." Someone in the back yells, "Classic." Sophia claps her hands. "All right. New plan for today's class. We're giving our girl the biggest pump of her life. And don't you dare try to pay for this week, next week, or the one after." The whole vibe in the room flips. Suddenly I'm in the center reformer, with Sophia basically giving me a $300 one-on-one session while everyone else cheers. Miranda's filming. So is the woman behind me. So is the woman across from me. Anytime I start to struggle, someone's shouting encouragement. At one point, an older woman, absolutely killing it on her machine, says, "My ex-husband told me the same thing 30 years ago. I quit working out. Biggest regret of my life." Don't you dare shrink yourself for some insecure little boy. Even the college girl in the corner pipes up, "My boyfriend brags about how strong I'm getting. That's what real men do." By the time class ends, I'm dead. Legs shaking like jello. But I've never felt better. The girl gang sticks around an extra 15 minutes just to watch me finish strong. When they start posting clips on Instagram and tagging me, I repost them all with Flowers by Miley Cyrus blasting over it. Yeah, with the lyrics on. And then my phone explodes. His sister slides into my DMs like, "Girl, you're way out of his league." His best friend? "Your body is chef's kiss." I don't know if it was the endorphins or just the fact that 20 women had my back. But I did something I never thought I'd do. I sent his mom the voicemail. "Mrs. Davidson, I think you should hear what your son said to me." 5 minutes later, she's blowing up my messages with voice notes. Thick Long Island accent, absolutely fuming. "Are you kidding me right now? I did not raise him like this. I'm literally shaking. This is disgusting." Second message, "Honey, you need to leave him. I'm not even saying this as his mother. I'm saying this as a woman." Third message, "I'm calling him. Actually, no. I'm driving to his apartment. This ends today." By the time all this went down, it was pushing 4 p.m. and I was done. Like emotionally drained, physically wiped. So I did what any sane person would do. I crashed. Hard. When I woke up, my phone screen was just chaos. Dozens of missed calls. Texts stacked on top of texts. All from Preston. The first, voicemail? He's fuming. The second? Straight up threatening. By the 10th one, he's fake calm. Acting like we should talk about this rationally. Yeah. There was no rational. Not today. Fast forward to 6 p.m. I'm curled up on my couch, scrolling through hundreds of DMs from women sharing their own war stories. When I hear his key in my front door, my whole body goes rigid. He walks in looking wrecked. Shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, still in yesterday's clothes from when he left to crash at Derek's. But here's the kicker, no apology. "No, are you okay?" "Nope." First thing out of his mouth, "Why did you have to make this public?" Like I was the one in the wrong. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. He starts pacing, hand in his hair, over and over, ranting about how his phone hasn't stopped all day, how his boss saw the posts because a coworker's wife follows me, how everyone at work is laughing behind his back, and how his mom won't pick up his calls. Apparently, I had ruined his life over one stupid voicemail. I told him, as calmly as I could, that I didn't ruin anything. Those were his words in his voice. I just hit play. That's when he lunges toward the coffee table, reaching for my phone like we're suddenly a tag team trying to fix this together. I yank it back. There's no we anymore, I told him. His whole vibe shifts from desperate to furious. You're really going to throw away 2 years over this? Then he doubles down, says he was just being honest about my body changing. No apology. No accountability. Right then, my phone buzzes. Miranda. She's checking if I'm safe because she saw his location pop up near my building on Find My Friends. She says the whole Pilates crew is ready to roll if I need backup. And that's when it hits me. I'm not alone in this. So I tell Preston he needs to leave, and leave my key. Instead, he plops down on my couch, arms crossed. We need to talk like adults. I tell him I'll call building security. He laughs, this bitter, mocking sound, and says, "What's a little more drama? You've already trashed my reputation." It's wild. 2 years together, and I'm only now seeing how manipulative he's been. I lock myself in my bedroom and text Sophia and Miranda. He won't leave. 2 minutes later, there's a group chat with 12 women from class. Every single one offers to come over. Olivia even sends me a recording she made earlier of Preston screaming on the sidewalk outside the studio, calling me crazy and accusing me of trying to ruin his life. From the living room, I can hear him on the phone with Derek, loudly painting himself as the victim. But then his voice drops, and I hear something that chills me. That I'm going to regret this when I realize what he knows about me. My stomach sinks. I start replaying every private thing I've told him over 2 years, the vulnerable stuff you only share with someone you trust completely, and my skin goes cold. Then ding-dong, over and over. I hear the door open, and then I hear Helen, his mom, storm in, her Long Island accent sharp enough to cut glass. She's yelling, telling him she drove all the way from Manhasset just to confirm her son is a misogynistic piece of garbage. Get in the car. Now. He tries to argue, says I'm being dramatic, and that she always liked me more than him. Helen stops cold. Maybe that's because she never gave me a reason not to like her. And you? You're proving exactly why I'm disappointed in you right now. He's shocked. He tries to pull away, but she's got him by the arm, marching him toward the hallway. Their voices echo until it's quiet. 15 minutes later, my door opens and closes softly. Peek out. He's gone. His keys on the counter, and next to it, a torn piece of my grocery list pad with a note in her handwriting. I'm sorry. You deserve so much better. I'll make sure he doesn't bother you again. Helen. I'm shaking as I pick it up, but for the first time all day, I can breathe. I order pad thai from my go-to spot down the street, set up my laptop, and FaceTime Miranda and Sophia. We eat together, me straight from the carton, and they start dramatically reading my DMs out loud. One's from a pro bodybuilder offering to be my gym boyfriend, just to make Preston jealous. Miranda reads it in this deep, ridiculous voice while Sophia's cackling so hard she's crying. For a while, it feels like any other Saturday night gossip session with my girls. Not the aftermath of one of the worst days of my life. We stay on for hours. Before hanging up, they make me promise to text, no matter the time, if I need anything. When I finally crash, I'm out in minutes, totally drained. But Sunday morning, my phone is a nightmare. 47 missed calls. A wall of texts, starting at 2 a.m. At first, he's apologizing. Then he's mad. Then he's begging. The last one, at 4 a.m., makes my blood run cold. He says he knows about my eating disorder in college, something I told him in confidence over a year ago, and asks how my Pilates friends would feel if they knew. I feel sick. That was supposed to be safe with him. Hands shaking, I start screenshotting every single message and drop them into the group chat. Miranda's reply is instant. That's blackmail. My ex pulled the same crap. Save everything. Sophia adds, I've struggled with an ED too. Anyone who weaponizes that is trash. If he tries it, I'll tell the whole class myself. I cry. Not because I'm scared anymore, but because instead of judging me, they're already ready to fight for me. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone lit up with a call from Jasmine, Preston's sister. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been holding something in all day. She told me that at 5 in the morning, Preston had shown up at her place completely wasted, ranting about how I'd turned everyone against him. She said she'd actually been recording his voicemails to her because, in her words, something feels off, and I want you to have proof in case this turns legal. I thanked her, and we talked for a few minutes about how she'd never seen her brother spiral like this before, and how she was genuinely scared of what he might try next. When we hung up, I channeled all my anxiety into cleaning, stripping my bed, tossing his toothbrush and shower gel in the trash, pulling his random stuff from drawers and closets. When I found one of his hoodies wedged in the back, there wasn't a pang of sadness, only relief. Miranda texted me suggesting we burn his things as some kind of cleansing ritual, but honestly, I wasn't in the mood to start a bonfire in my living room. Everything went into a donation bag. Out of sight, out of my life. Monday morning, I tried to pretend it was business as usual. I even got to the office early. But the second I walked in, my stomach flipped. There was this massive bouquet of roses sitting on my desk. The card read, "I'm sorry for everything. Please give me another chance. P." My coworkers were fawning over it like it was the most romantic thing they'd ever seen. Meanwhile, I could barely keep from gagging. I picked up the whole arrangement, walked straight to the break room, and dumped the flowers, vase and all, into the trash, making sure everyone saw. An hour later, my boss calls me in. She looks concerned. "Preston called the main office line trying to reach you," she says, knowing I'd blocked him. She asked if security needed to be looped in, and I told her I appreciated it, but I'd handle it. Still, she had them keep an extra eye out just in case. At lunch, I'm minding my own business, eating a salad at my desk, when I get a text from Derek, Preston's college best friend. He wants to meet for coffee to clear the air and help us work things out. I politely decline. He keeps pushing, saying Preston isn't himself, and I need to hear his side. I block him too. By the end of the day, I'm exhausted and just want to get home. But on the subway, something feels wrong. I keep catching glimpses of baseball caps in my peripheral. A Yankees cap standing way too close behind me on the escalator. A Mets cap directly across from me on the train. My pulse spikes every time. I end up switching cars, which makes me late, but I can't shake the paranoia. Finally, I make it to my building and freeze. Sitting on the hallway floor outside my apartment is Preston. He's got a pizza box on one side, a bottle of wine on the other, and this weird little smile. "We should have our regular Monday dinner," he says, like nothing's happened. I back into the elevator so fast I almost trip and start mashing the lobby button. My hands are trembling so badly I can barely hit the number for building security. They tell me to stay downstairs while they deal with it. While I wait, I text my landlord to change the locks and ban him from the property. She replies almost instantly. Mrs. Davidson had already called her earlier that day. The trespass order would be official tomorrow. 30 minutes later, the head security guy, Carl, who's been working here longer than I've lived in the city, calls to say Preston's been escorted off the floor. Apparently, he got loud about his rights and how they couldn't keep him from his girlfriend. Carl promises to make extra rounds past my door that night. The next morning at 6, I grab my phone, and my blood runs cold. My Instagram has blown up with notifications. When I open it, I see that every single workout video, progress picture, 2 years worth of posts, gone. In their place are old college photos of me when I was scary skinny. My bio now says, "Natural skinny is better than bulky muscles." I know immediately he still had my password from when we were dating. I'm shaking as I start recovery steps, firing off messages to the group chat. Miranda starts screenshotting before anything can be deleted again. Sophia's telling me this is criminal harassment and I need to log everything. Olivia, our tech wizard from NYU, offers to trace the IP. Then my phone rings, Mrs. Davidson. She's horrified, says Preston didn't come home, and that when she got back last night, his laptop was open on the kitchen counter, with my Instagram pulled up. She's already photographed everything and is literally on her way to the police station to file a witness report. I thank her and try to get ready for work, but I can't focus. Sarah from my office drops a coffee on my desk without a word, and I almost cry. That's how on edge I am. At lunch, I meet with a harassment lawyer Miranda recommended. After looking through my screenshots, she says I've got more than enough for a restraining order, especially with the hack, the voicemails, and the threats. The retainer is steep, but I hand over my credit card. My safety is worth more. Back at my desk around 3, reception calls my direct line. There are 2 men in the lobby asking for you, she says quietly. And one of them is starting to get aggressive. Preston. At this point, he's basically running through the entire Toxic X playbook like he's cramming for a final exam. Threats, guilt trips, hacking my accounts, sending his little backup squad to my office. This man is collecting red flags like they're rare Pokemon cards. The pit in my stomach got heavier when reception described who was in the lobby. Preston, wearing a suit like he was auditioning for Respectable Citizen of the Year, and Derek right next to him. I told them to call security immediately, grabbed my bag, and headed for the back stairwell. I could hear Preston's voice getting louder, closer, as I slipped out the service exit. My boss actually caught me almost sprinting down the street. I quickly explained what was going on, and she didn't hesitate. Work from home the rest of the week. Stay safe. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tap for an Uber. Every minute waiting outside felt like an hour. I kept glancing over my shoulder, convinced he'd round the corner. Finally, the car pulled up, and of course my phone starts blowing up. It's Jasmine. Voice messages. She says Preston's been calling everyone in the family all day, trying to rally them to set me straight. Their aunt chewed him out and hung up. A cousin blocked him after he went on some bizarre rant about women teaming up to destroy men. Jasmine kept repeating that she'd never seen him spiral like this, and she was scared for what he might do next. I text Miranda, "Can I crash at yours?" Her reply, instant. "Yes. Already told my doorman you're coming." Her Upper East Side place looked like something off HGTV, wall-to-wall windows, marble counters. She'd already ordered Chinese food and had this ridiculously expensive ice cream waiting in the freezer. We put on Love Island, but I couldn't follow the plot if my life depended on it. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Miranda noticed, flipped my phone face down on the table, and told me to breathe. "You're safe here," she said. But my brain wouldn't stop imagining him showing up anyway. The next morning at 7, my lawyer calls. She's already filed for an emergency restraining order. Hearings set for Friday. Papers will be served today. And her warning? He's probably going to react badly. Stay somewhere else. That afternoon, Sophia calls, her voice frantic. Preston showed up at the studio during the lunch class, demanding to know if I was there. He's telling everyone I'm mentally unstable and off my medication. Total fiction. Women started filming as security dragged him out while he's screaming about me being crazy. The studio's pressing trespassing charges. Sophia says he looked unhinged. 2 hours later, the manager calls to confirm they've plastered his photo at the front desk. If he shows up again, police will be called immediately. 12 different women have already volunteered to testify about his behavior if I need them. That night, I call my mom in Ohio and finally spill everything. The voicemail, the harassment, all of it. She listens quietly, then says she never liked him because he always interrupted me when I spoke. She offers to fly out. I tell her I'm okay, which isn't true. But hearing her believe me without hesitation keeps me from completely falling apart. The next day, my lawyer calls again. Papers served. Preston got them at work. Within an hour, his mom calls me crying, apologizing over and over, saying she's failed as a mother. I tell her it's not her fault, but she insists on covering my legal fees at the very least. Later, Derek texts me from a new number. He sends screenshots from Preston's group chat. Preston's telling all his friends I've been cheating, doing drugs, that I set him up. Every message is more detached from reality than the last. Derek says he's sending them because even the guys in the group are disturbed. I forward everything to my lawyer. She says it's gold for a defamation claim, but honestly, I don't want to breathe the same legal air as Preston any longer than I have to. I just want him gone. That evening, I go back to my apartment for the first time in 2 days to grab clothes. Everything looks fine, but it feels contaminated. Like his presence is still in the air. I pack fast, keep glancing over my shoulder, jump at every noise in the hallway. The next night, After a long day of zoning out in work meetings, I swing by again for more stuff. I'm heading out around 7:30 when I see it. Parked across the street, engine idling. Preston's car. He's just sitting there, staring at me through the windshield. Ice floods my veins. My hands shake as I pull out my phone, snapping photos and videos. The restraining order isn't approved yet, so technically he's not breaking the law. But I call 911 anyway. I stay in the lobby with the doorman while we wait for cops. 30 minutes later, they're talking to him at his car. From where I stand, I can see his arms waving wildly. One officer comes back to tell me he claims he's visiting a friend and just happens to be parked there. They can't arrest him, but they tell him to leave, and they're documenting it for my case. I wait another hour until the doorman confirms his car is gone. And even then, I'm still too scared to go upstairs. The next morning, I had to be in court by 9 a.m. for the restraining order hearing, and the entire subway ride there, my stomach felt like it was tied in 1,000 knots. And then I walked into the courtroom and saw him, Preston, in his best Navy suit, hair slicked back, sitting next to an actual lawyer, looking composed and professional, like he was the victim here. The judge started flipping through the evidence packet, while Preston sat there with this fake, concerned face, like he was just a humble man wronged by an evil plot. Then his lawyer stood up and tried the boldest spin I've ever heard, said the voice message had been taken out of context, and that I'd orchestrated a social media hate campaign against poor Preston. My lawyer didn't even flinch. She walked the judge through every text Preston sent after I blocked him. The Instagram hack, the old photos he posted, all of it. Finally, the judge looked Preston dead in the eyes and asked why he accessed my Instagram without permission. His lawyer tried to jump in, but the judge shut him down. "I want to hear from your client." That's when it all unraveled. Preston lost the cool, calm act and started ranting. Said I made him do it by humiliating him. Accused me of probably sleeping with someone from Pilates. Claimed that's the real reason I was asking for a restraining order. The judge told him to stop talking, and then granted the order for 1 full year. Effective immediately. Preston stormed out, his lawyer chasing after him like he was trying to corral an angry toddler in a suit. Afterward, I sat in a coffee shop feeling weirdly empty. Not relieved. Not happy. Just drained. The barista noticed my hands shaking and slid me a cookie with a little heart drawn on the napkin. I almost cried right there. Lately, it's been the kindness from strangers that hits the hardest. I texted the Pilates group chat, and it exploded. Heart emojis, champagne emojis. Sophia declaring Saturday's class would be a celebration of strength in my honor. Miranda promised to bring actual champagne. For the first time all week, I thought, maybe I'll be okay. That evening, Mrs. Davidson texted me. Preston got fired. Apparently, his company has a zero-tolerance policy for employees with restraining orders, and making a scene when the papers were served didn't help. Now he's moving back to her house on Long Island. She's getting him into therapy whether he likes it or not. Saturday morning, I walked into the Pilates studio for the first time since this all began, and everyone started clapping. Totally mortifying, but also kind of amazing. Sophia had even adjusted the workout to be empowering without pushing me too hard. Every few minutes, someone checked in to make sure I was okay. After class, I finally went back to my apartment for real. The silence felt different. I locked every door, shut every curtain. I'd never done that in 3 years living there. The next morning, Jasmine called, sounding upset. Preston had been posting all over Reddit, painting himself as the poor, misunderstood boyfriend. According to him, I was in some toxic gym cult that turned me against him. I pulled up Reddit and found one of his posts in a relationship sub with hundreds of comments. Preston's Reddit crusade really put the X in extremely online. Nothing screams stability like making multiple burner accounts to argue with strangers about your restraining order from your mom's house. He wrote this melodramatic essay about how I'd been brainwashed by Pilates and turned violent when he expressed concern. Comments were split, half roasting him for being controlling, half buying his story. Jasmine was screenshotting everything for my lawyer, but said it made her sick seeing him twist the truth. I spent the rest of Sunday doing the same screenshot after screenshot, while also packing a go bag, just in case. Monday morning came too fast. I dragged myself to work, parked in the garage, and froze. All 4 of my tires were flat. Not just flat, slashed. Huge cuts through the rubber. I called building security, trying not to cry. My boss came down herself, furious, and told me to wait in her office while they pulled security footage and called the police. By 2 p.m., a detective came to update me. They had clear footage of someone in a hoodie and baseball cap slashing the tires. But the build was wrong for Preston, taller, broader. And instantly I thought of Derek. I told the detective, and within an hour, they were knocking on his apartment door. He folded almost immediately when shown the footage. Said Preston paid him $500 to send me a message. Claimed he didn't know about the restraining order. Didn't matter. They cuffed Derek on the spot and put out a warrant for Preston for conspiracy to violate the order. I was still at my desk, staring at my computer but not actually seeing anything, when my phone rang at 6 p.m. Mrs. Davidson. She was hysterical, crying so hard I could barely make out the words, but eventually, I pieced it together. Preston never came home after Derek's arrest. She'd gone into his room and found a note. It said he was going to fix things once and for all. She had no idea what that meant, and she was terrified. She'd already called the police, and they were at her house, but nobody knew where he was. I didn't even think. I grabbed my bag and left work on the spot, heading straight for Miranda's apartment. I didn't want to be alone, and her doorman building felt like a fortress. She let me into her guest room, made me tea, and sat with me while I called my lawyer. That night, the police put out an alert for Preston. My lawyer told me to keep moving, stay somewhere unpredictable for a few days. Sophia offered her guest room, which seemed random enough that Preston wouldn't think to look there. I took her up on it. When Miranda and I swung by my place so I could grab more clothes, I had this bizarre moment. Just a week ago, my biggest worry was whether my shoulders looked too big in a tank top. Now, I was essentially hiding from someone I used to sleep next to. Tuesday morning, I woke up in Sophia's guest room to her cat jumping on the bed and the smell of coffee. She was in the kitchen making eggs, news playing in the background. For a split second, it felt normal, except for the part where I was in hiding from my ex-boyfriend who'd completely lost it. Around 3 p.m., my phone blew up. Preston had been arrested at Newark Airport. He tried to board a flight to Miami using a ticket bought with Derek's stolen credit card. The airline flagged it, the cops grabbed him at the gate, and now he was facing criminal contempt, conspiracy to violate a protective order, and identity theft. Bail was set at $50,000. His mom refused to pay it. Wednesday morning, my lawyer called. Preston's team was pushing for a plea deal, claiming temporary emotional distress, so he could get therapy instead of jail. The prosecutor wanted my opinion. Part of me wanted him punished. But mostly, I just wanted this to be over. That night, I tried going to a yoga class somewhere new, just to feel normal again. But the whole time, I was watching the door, scanning the windows, checking the exits. When the instructor offered to walk me to my car, I said yes, and realized how far I was from feeling safe. Thursday morning, my lawyer got word from Derek's attorney. Derek was ready to flip. He had text messages of Preston pressuring him to slash my tires, threatening to ruin his life if he refused. The screenshots were disturbing. Friday morning, Preston's bail hearing. I didn't have to go, thank God. My lawyer texted me updates in real time. Apparently, Preston melted down in front of the judge, fired his lawyer on the spot, started yelling about being persecuted, and demanded to cross-examine me, even though I wasn't there. The judge shut him down, denied his bail modification, and sent him back to jail until trial. That afternoon, Mrs. Davidson asked to meet for coffee. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Her hands shook as she slid a box of my things across the table. She told me Preston had been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Looking back, she realized there had been signs for years, signs she'd ignored. She kept apologizing over and over, and I could tell she was genuinely broken by what her son had become. Saturday morning, I went back to Pilates. Sophia had the class holding planks when I walked in. Something in me clicked. I held that plank for 3 minutes straight. Personal record. Sophia announced it, the whole room cheered. Miranda filmed it, and for those 3 minutes, Preston didn't exist. I posted the video myself with a simple caption. Getting stronger every day. Sunday, I started apartment hunting. Told the realtor I wanted a fresh start. She just gave me this knowing look and said half her female clients were in the same situation. Sad, but also strangely comforting. Then Monday hit. HR called me in. They'd gotten an anonymous email with fake intimate photos of me. IT traced it to a public library near the jail. The prosecutor added cyber harassment and more charges to Preston's case. That afternoon, my boss pulled me into her office. Instead of being angry, she offered me paid leave and said the company would cover therapy. Then she admitted she'd been through something similar 15 years ago and wished she'd had that kind of support back then. I started crying right there. She just handed me tissues and told me to take the time I needed. Tuesday evening, I went to my first therapy session. The therapist asked, "When was the last time you felt truly safe?" And I couldn't answer. Eventually, I realized it was before I met Preston. Even in the so-called good times, I'd been walking on eggshells. By Thursday, the prosecutor came with a plea offer. 18 months in jail, 5 years probation, mandatory therapy, and a permanent restraining order. If he didn't take it, they'd go for the max, 5 years. I thought about it overnight and decided closure was worth more than revenge. Told them Friday morning to take the deal. An hour later, Preston's lawyer came back with a condition. He'd only accept if I admitted I overreacted. That was it. The prosecutor yanked the offer completely. She said, "We're going for the maximum now. 0 remorse means 0 leniency." Saturday at Pilates, a new woman came up to me after class with tears in her eyes. She'd seen my story in a women's support group and said it gave her the courage to leave her abusive boyfriend last week. She thanked me and said I might have saved her life. And maybe that didn't make what I went through worth it. But at least something good came out of all this pain. Tuesday morning, my lawyer called with an update that made my stomach twist. The trial date was officially set 3 months out. And Preston's new lawyer? Already flooding the court with motions to get the Instagram posts and that infamous voicemail thrown out. His argument? The posts were free speech and the voicemail was private. The judge wasn't buying a single word of it. Denied every single motion. Preston's legal strategy of demanding I admit I overreacted was basically like graduating from the school of missing the point with highest honors. Congratulations, sir, way to tank your own plea deal. 2 days later, I signed the lease on my new apartment across town. Doorman, cameras everywhere, key fob just to get in the elevator. The landlord, an older woman, took one look at my restraining order paperwork and said she'd had tenants in my situation before. She walked me through the panic buttons in each room and the direct line to security like she was giving a VIP tour. That Sunday, the Pilates crew showed up to help me pack the old place. Miranda came with champagne, Sophia brought moving boxes, and Olivia made a breakup song playlist that was chef's kiss. 2 years' worth of stuff got sorted in hours. Anything that was Preston's went straight in the trash. When we found old photos of us, I didn't feel sad, just relieved. Olivia wanted to burn them in some kind of ceremonial exorcism, but we settled for the shredder. Friday night, I was back in court for Derek's sentencing. He got 200 hours of community service and probation. Outside, he stopped me, crying. Said Preston had convinced him I was the crazy one, but therapy had opened his eyes to how toxic their whole friend group was. The next Wednesday, Preston's lawyer tried one of the dirtiest moves yet, subpoenaing my medical records from 5 years ago. He found out I'd been treated for an eating disorder in college and wanted to use it to prove I was unstable. My lawyer shut it down immediately. The judge not only blocked it, but fined Preston's lawyer for even trying it. Then Monday afternoon, Mrs. Davidson gave her deposition. She brought emails and texts from 2 of Preston's exes who'd reached out after seeing the news. Both had nearly identical stories, controlling behavior, explosive anger when they tried to leave. One had a restraining order from 3 years ago that he'd violated twice. By Saturday evening, Miranda decided I needed to get back out there and set me up with a coffee date. The guy was fine, normal, but I spent the whole time scanning for red flags. At one point, he reached for the sugar, and I actually flinched. When he asked about dinner sometime, I told him I was too busy. I wasn't ready to trust anyone new yet. Thursday, Preston had his court-ordered psych evaluation. The result? Narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial traits. His lawyer tried to spin it into an insanity defense. The psychologist shut that down immediately. Preston knew right from wrong. He just didn't care. The following Tuesday, the prosecutor called with huge news. 2 more of his exes wanted to testify. One still had her restraining order with every violation documented. Now there were new charges for stalking and harassment added to the pile. Meanwhile, I kept going to Sunday Pilates. My body was stronger than it had ever been. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see bulky shoulders anymore. I saw muscle that had carried me through hell. I posted a photo not for my body, but because my smile finally looked real. Weeks blurred into lawyer meetings and prep sessions. Then Friday came, and my mom's flight landed at JFK. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. At my apartment, she kept touching everything like she had to confirm it was real. The panic buttons, the security system. She said I looked stronger, but also harder. That night, she slept in my guest room, and for the first time in months, I slept all the way through without checking the locks. 5 days later, we were in court for jury selection. Preston sat across the room, looking like he'd dropped 20 pounds. His suit hung off him. His cheekbones could cut glass. He kept trying to make eye contact, but I kept my eyes glued to the table until his lawyer pulled him back. The next morning, the prosecutor laid out his entire pattern of abuse, screenshots, recordings, timelines. Preston's lawyer tried to spin me as some clout-chasing drama queen who orchestrated everything to ruin his life because he dumped me. He even dropped the phrase cancel culture, like it was his mic drop moment. A few jurors actually frowned at that. By Friday, it was my turn. For hours on the stand, walking through everything. The prosecutor took me step by step through the evidence, while Preston's lawyer kept objecting like he was auditioning for most annoying in court. Cross-examination was brutal, accusing me of revenge, of chasing fame, of playing the victim on social media. I kept my voice steady, stuck to the facts, and didn't let him bait me. When I talked about being too scared to even leave my apartment some days, I saw a few jurors shift uncomfortably in their seats. They believed me. I could feel it. That afternoon, Sophia took the stand. Calm, but with an edge in her voice I'd never heard before. She brought the studio's security footage. Preston pounding on the door, trying to get in when he was never even a member. The sign-in sheets? Completely blank next to his name. She described how he'd shown up that day, screaming, while her other clients sat frozen in fear. You could feel the jury shift in their seats. Monday morning, Miranda arrived with a binder. Page after page of printed screenshots, every fake account Preston had made. She put them on the big screen in front of the jury, side by side with my real Instagram posts, proving exactly how the deepfake photos were built from my own images. When the edited pictures came up, one woman on the jury actually gasped. Then they brought in someone I'd never met. A small, blonde woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. She was Preston's ex from 3 years ago. Her story? The same as mine, only worse. She'd had to move from Boston to Miami just to get away from him. She cried describing the night she came home to find him already in her apartment, just sitting in the dark on her couch. Tuesday morning, Preston demanded to testify. His lawyer kept shaking his head, but Preston wouldn't let it go. He started out controlled, even polite, but every question from the prosecutor made him redder. First, he said he was at the studio because he was worried about me. Then he changed it, said I'd invited him. Then changed it again, claimed he had a right to be there. When the prosecutor showed him his own texts, he waved them off as out of context. Then she asked about the deepfakes. He actually said, "They're not that bad. Maybe she should be flattered." His lawyer put his head in his hands like he was watching a slow-motion car crash. By Tuesday afternoon, the prosecutor went for the throat. She hit him with every lie, every contradiction. That's when he lost it completely. jumped to his feet and shouted that I deserved everything for humiliating him. That women like me needed to learn their place. That he was just teaching me a lesson. The judge banged her gavel so hard it echoed, threatened him with contempt. His lawyer grabbed his arm. One older juror just shook his head in disgust. Wednesday morning, closing arguments. The prosecutor laid it all out. How Preston escalated from mean texts to stalking to threats the moment he lost control. She showed the pattern crystal clear. Preston's lawyer tried to argue reasonable doubt, but even he sounded like he knew it was over. The jury filed out. Preston looked at me, really looked, like he finally understood he'd lost. 3 hours felt like 3 days. When they came back, the foreman's hands shook as he read. Guilty criminal contempt. Preston's head snapped toward me. Guilty stalking. Guilty harassment. Guilty cybercrimes. Guilty conspiracy. Each word landed like a punch. By the last verdict, his lawyer was holding him down. Preston just kept shaking his head, mouthing no over and over. Sentencing was set for the next morning. Courtroom packed. The prosecutor called me first for my victim impact statement. My hands gripped the podium while I told them about the nightmares, the therapy, the way I still check my locks 5 times before bed. Preston's other ex went next. Years of fear, moving constantly, changing her number. Mrs. Davidson spoke last. She said she'd lost the son she thought she raised, blamed herself for not seeing the signs, and admitted he needed help as much as punishment. The judge reviewed everything, then delivered it. 4 years in state prison, 10 years probation, lifetime restraining order, mandatory psychological treatment. Preston exploded, started screaming about appeals, calling it all lies, shouting my name. 2 officers had to drag him out while he hurled threats over his shoulder. And his lawyer? He actually looked relieved when the doors closed. Outside, Mrs. Davidson hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. She promised she'd keep him away if he ever got out early. The prosecutor shook my hand and told me I was one of the strongest witnesses she'd seen in 20 years. I didn't feel strong. I just felt empty. But maybe empty is the first step toward moving on.